Welcome and thank you for joining us. It's Wednesday, July 24th. You're watching News 2 on Fire Channel 4 and 504. I'm Leslie Camise-Young. Topping our stories tonight, Virgin Islands Port Authority board members placed both of their territories' airports on public exigency after FAA officials were going to suspend the operating certificate for St. Thomas's Sarah Lee King Airport. News 2 has the story.
With the operating certificate of St. Thomas's Sarah Lee King Airport on the verge of suspension, VA Port Authority board members placed both of the territory's airports under public exigency so that they can fast-track repairs and purchases needed to get the airport into compliance. Viper Executive Director Carlton Dow, who returned to his position last month after being released from the authority in December 2016 without cause, said Tuesday the Federal Aviation Administration made its intent clear on July 19th, citing the need for timely remedial action that is based on inspection results since at least 2016 and Viper's continued failure to meet certain federal requirements at the airports. For months, Viper officials have been working to soothe the FAA's concerns.
We are preparing a response to Government House to basically document our progress to date in addressing the FAA's concerns and the measures we have taken as it relates to safety and compliance at our airport facilities. We also sent the FAA correspondence on Friday, February 8th, detailing the measures and where we are in terms of achieving the mandate of structural changes to our operations to meet the Part 139 compliance requirements and sustain those abilities over the long term. And we're also working on a settlement offer to the FAA as it relates to the $1.4 million pending civil penalty.
At a meeting at the end of May, after Viper lost its aviation manager, officials announced that its Deputy Executive Director, Anisi Hodge, would supervise the airports in both districts until the position, which they described as critical to the agency, is filled. At a May meeting, then Acting Executive Director Damian Cartwright also spoke about the upcoming visit from the FAA, whose representatives were expected to be in the territory for an annual assessment meant to ensure that airport operations were safe and in compliance with federal standards. The FAA levied the Port Authority with fines last January following the inspection that pushed Viper to consider structural changes in its operations, along with the purchase of certain equipment and the addition of certain personnel, among other things. Cartwright said during the main meeting that a settlement agreement has been drafted for review, which will come to the board for approval after being approved by the FAA. Tuesday's meeting on St. Thomas painted a more dire picture, however, with Dow presenting his staff's recommendation for public exigency while meeting with the board for an hours-long executive session. According to the recommendations, the port must demonstrate by Wednesday, July 24th, that it has obtained management personnel acceptable to the FAA to oversee St. Thomas operations and continue to maintain qualified personnel. Establish an FAA correction plan by August 19th and complete all actions in the plan on a timely basis. For News 2, this is James Gardner.
The board also authorized the creation of several new positions to go along with the order, most of which are engineers needed to round out the existing 3-person engineering staff. These engineers can also oversee and monitor several of the port's ongoing and future restoration projects, along with repair issues at its facility, officials said. On Tuesday, Agriculture Commissioner Positive Nelson delivered a scathing criticism of farmers in the territory and what he called abusive practices. Nelson, who was at the Senate defending the agency's fiscal year 2020 budget, said some farmers in the territory not only have been squatting on government land for years without a lease, some of them also abuse critical resources, including water, and failed to make payments of $20 per acre per year to the government. Nelson also criticized what he called a, quote, sideways hobby type of farming where farmers only work the land part-time and are not producing enough. Senator Kurt Violet also charged Nelson to take the leadership of the department and engage in measures to resolve these issues. According to Nelson, a lot of these issues regarding abuse by farmers can be seen on St. Thomas. Here's more from that hearing.
Most of the abuse is in Bodo. where the land is being used for other than farming, where there's squatting on the land, and we're getting complaints that stereo systems loud at night. Their farmland is not to be lived on, and if there is going to be that, then there needs to be a different relationship with a different cost. But individual can't expect to pay $20 and have a homestead and hardly producing. And I want to remind you, most farmers are part-time. They go there after a regular day's job. So then, there's certain conversation we need to be having that may not, and I'm saying this because I heard you say it and I can respect that the Senate doesn't run the department. But when you start a press for change, many of them are going to come to the Senate. And all I'm asking is that we have the dialogue, but there is going to have to be a change because there is a lot of abuse going on with particularly government properties.
We have X amount of properties on St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John. You have to develop a timetable as to when you're going to be able to assess, analyze specific geographical areas. Whether you start with the community gardens, and then you go out to the Vicor land in the Bethlehem area, but you have to have a timetable. Or these lands are going to remain dormant for the next 5 years. And they've been dormant for the last 4 years I've been in this body. We just passed the land there by Sager Farms, and there's land close by that have been dormant forever. So I just want to make sure that we allowing individuals who are doing what they're supposed to do to be able to acquire more land and expand their farm.
Meanwhile, Governor Albert Bryan recently put forth the names of 4 people to take seats on the Virgin Islands Cannabis Advisory Board, the entity charged with the creating of regulations and policies governing the medical marijuana industry in the territory. The Medical Cannabis Patient Care Act, passed by the 32nd legislature, calls for a 9-member board, and each member has to come from a specific background. Governor Bryan's nominees so far are Miguel Tricoche, a St. Croix resident and director of the Consumer Affairs at the Department of Licensing and Consumer Affairs, Dr. Catherine A. Ken, a private practice physician on St. Thomas, who also represents the Virgin Islands Health Department, Nicole Sims, a St. Thomas resident and Deputy Commissioner of Virgin Islands Department of Health, and Hugo Roller, a farmer and business owner on St. John. In May, the 33rd legislature amended the original medical cannabis bill to extend the time period for establishing the board and the Office of Cannabis Regulation. The new deadline to seat the entire Cannabis Advisory Board and put in place a set of rules has been extended to December 31st, 2019. Turning our attention to the crime report, police on St. Croix have arrested a man on rape charges. According to police, on July 22nd, a woman reported that a man identified as John Polian made unwelcome advances towards her, overpowered her, and sexually assaulted her. On July 23rd, at the Francis Command in Frederickstead, Polian admitted to having sexual intercourse with the female. Polian, who is 59 years old, was placed under arrest and charged with rape in the first degree and unlawful sexual contact in the first degree. His bail was set at $75,000. He was remanded to the Golden Grove detention facility pending his advice of rights hearing. Coming up next, with Puerto Rico undergoing a political upheaval, Virgin Islanders with strong ties to the neighboring island weigh in. We'll be right back. Puerto Rico's 12th governor, Ricardo Rosselló, is expected to resign today. Investigative journalists released damning statements made by the governor and his cabinet members in a private chat group. The chats detailed degrading statements to women, homophobic comments, and death threats to the San Juan mayor. St. Croix Administrator Samuel Sanas is appalled by the statements, but says that the Virgin Islands differs from Puerto Rico.
Over the past week, Puerto Ricans have staged protests on the island as well as on the continental U.S., demanding that Ricardo Rosselló, the Commonwealth's 12th governor, resign. On June 13th, Puerto Rico Center for Investigative Journalism shared 889 pages of text exchanged on a messaging app between the governor and 11 of his top aides as well as cabinet members. The messages included homophobic statements of Puerto Rican pop star Ricky Martin, body-shaming verbiage of a Rosello supporter, threatening verbiage aimed at San Juan Mayor Carmen Yulín Cruz, as well as cracks about the dead bodies accumulated after Hurricane Maria.
I am not proud of what I did. Those were merely comments, but they were hurtful comments. So I apologize for what I've done.
Former Senator and now St. Croix Administrator Samuel Sanas is a second-generation Virgin Islanders whose roots stem from Puerto Rico. Sanas says he's appalled by the texts.
I was extremely disappointed at the type of language that was used. As a public figure, you must respect everyone. You must respect everyone regardless of their religion, sexual orientation, where they come from. And to me, once again, it was extremely disappointing.
Social media comments reflect that Puerto Ricans are unhappy with the manner that Rosello handled disaster recovery in the territory. Recently, Rosello's former Secretary of Education, along with 5 others, were arrested and charged with 32 counts of fraud and a loss of $15.5 million in federal funding between 2017 and 2019 that should have gone to Puerto Rico's schools.
This is about his lack of integrity. It's about him using the power of the state to suppress political opposition. It's about all the austerity measures. It's about him admitting that he's withholding aid that was necessary for people during Irma and Maria just to set up the appropriate marketing or public relations event.
Although corruption is being brought to light, many worry that the sequence of events play into an idea that U.S. territories are unable to govern themselves.
Let me make this clear, though, and this is something that it bothers me a lot as a former senator. Yes, we are part of the United States. We consider territory, but this comparison between us and Puerto Rico, it troubles me because we're two separate type of government, two separate entities, and what's happening in Puerto Rico should not reflect on what's happening here. They're going through their tribulations, they're going through their issues, and we need to take a close look at it, and perhaps we need to learn from them. But to state that we are all the same, I said no.
Sources state that Rosello made a recording last evening, possibly resigning from his governorship. Yesterday, Rosello tweeted, "The people are talking and it's time to listen. It has been moments of total reflection and to make decisions that are running according to the concerns of the people of Puerto Rico and their best interests." For News 2, I'm Stephanie Shalana Brown.
The Department of Health is trying to shore up its behavioral health offerings. Health officials are currently looking for qualified behavioral health professionals to join the team, so they're holding job fairs in both districts. On St. Thomas, the job fairs will be held on Monday, July 29th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Emil Griffith Ballpark. Meanwhile, on St. Croix, the job fair will be held on Wednesday, July 31st from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the Sunny Isles Amphitheater. The Health Department is looking for candidates in various positions for both the St. Thomas and St. Croix districts, including outreach workers, prevention specialists, program managers, opioid specialists, clinical therapists, and alcohol and narcotics counselors. Applications have to bring both a resume and a cover letter when applying. Volunteers interested in working with the Department of Health are also encouraged to visit one of the job fairs to learn more about their volunteer opportunities. Again, those dates are July 29th on St. Thomas and July 31st on St. Croix. Stick around, your News 2 AccuWeather forecast is coming up next.
You're watching TV2. I'm meteorologist Paul Williams. As we take a look at what's happening throughout a good portion of the Virgin Island region, we're seeing, for the most part, it's staying pretty cooperative as far as things staying pretty settled for the most part. Now, we've had a very dominant high pressure system that's been kind of floating its way and just kind of minding its own business out into the deep waters of the Atlantic. But it's beginning to kind of enhance the trade wind influence as far as the flow is concerned and picking up a little bit more in the way of moisture content headed towards our general area. So we're going to look at increasing cloud cover throughout the Windward Islands, actually particularly clustering along the coast of South America towards the ABC Islands. We're looking for scattered showers to begin to go on the increase there with our current view. Now, as far as tonight is concerned, we are going to have patchy clouds in place. However, it's going to come with the caveat of a scattered shower or two as we drop back to about 80 degrees for the overnight low. Now, as we go into tomorrow in St. John's, we're going to have a muggy 89 degrees, and we're going to brace for a random shower, stray shower pretty much throughout the afternoon hours around the lunchtime hour. Now, we're expecting the same general expectation for us in St. Thomas with the 89, with a stray shower likely for us there for St. Thomas. And then as we go into tomorrow in St. Croix, we're looking at 89 degrees with some sunshine and bracing for a possibility of a shower throughout St. Croix. And then as we begin to kind of diligently take a look at our expectations for our marine forecast, well, for marine forecast on the Atlantic side, we're looking at waves between 3 to 5 feet. So that's going to maintain. And it looks like the winds are going to stay pretty steadfast out of the east at about 15 to 20 knots. Then as we go into the Caribbean, we're looking for the winds to die down a little bit, backing off down to about 10 to 15 knots, pardon me. But the waves are still holding steady at about 3 to 5 feet. With that being the case, here's a look at the extended forecast. Sun and some clouds for us on Friday with 91 for the high, dropping down to 81 for the overnight low. Mostly sunny skies on Saturday with 90 for the high, 80 for the low. We're only going to rise to 89 on Sunday. Partly sunny skies, pretty nice conditions, and a shower or two likely for us on Monday.
Thank you for that. Coming up next, Alex Randall's news and comments. We'll be right back.
You're watching News 2. This is Alex Randall with News and Comment. Now, I love irony. I love it when we do one thing and the opposite happens. We hire government officials to keep us safe. We hire government officials to protect us from crooks and thieves. And what happens when it turns out that one of the watchdogs, a scurrilous dog themselves? Witness Violet Ann Golden. The government hired her to oversee casino gaming. The job is to make sure the casino operators obey the laws, run honest games, and don't scam the public or skim money off the top for themselves. The Casino Control Commission is supposed to train the casino staff and make sure they know the rules and the laws. Hello, surprise. In recent indictments, the head of the Casino Control Commission is stealing money from the government. Arrested. 28 criminal counts. Federal charges, theft, wire fraud, money laundering, forgery, failure to file tax returns. And this is the watchdog person stealing. Money that's supposed to be used for training, siphoned away for the personal use of who? Violet Ann Golden and her staff. Like it's not enough to earn $105,000 a year. Now, show of hands, everybody. How many of you would be happy earning $105,000 a year watching over one casino? I see everyone. But no, for Golden, $105,000 a year is not enough. Nearly $500,000 stolen from the government to buy tickets to Cirque du Soleil and Disney World, lingerie from Needless Markup, shoes from Nordstrom's, jewelry from Cruise and Gold, first-class airfares to Las Vegas, and dinners at the Cheesecake Factory. Now, you can buy a lot of cheesecake for $152,000, tens of thousands of dollars in travel expenses, phony invoices, cash payments to friends, tickets to see the Broadway show Hamilton for a cool $5,000. Her tickets, your money. And who's lined up to replace Golden? Chucky Hansen. Now there is someone you can trust with the people's money. Hey, Chucky, did you ever pay back the $700,000 in food you looted out of the supermarkets after Hurricane Marilyn? Just asking, just asking. We're number one. Well, no, we're actually not number one. We're not even number two. How about number 6? Travel Plus Leisure magazine did their annual World's Best poll of their readers, and on the list for the best Caribbean island, Anguilla is number 1. How come? 33 beaches, lots of hotels, and not spoiled with day visitors. St. John only 5 points behind Anguilla, but in between them, number 2, St. Vincent the Grenadines, number 3, Vieques, number 4, Abaco in the Bahamas, number 5, St. Lucia, coming in number 6, St. John, 7's Virgin Gorda, 12, Jost van Dyke, 14's Culebra. No St. Thomas, no St. Croix. Now, how did we do on the best Caribbean hotel list? Number 1 is Frangipani Beach Resort in Anguilla. Now let's see. Then comes Antigua, St. Lucia, Jamaica, St. Bart's Dominica, another St. Lucia, more Jamaica, Turks and Caicos, Bahamas, St. Kitts, St. Lucia, Nevis, Necker Island in the BVI here, Puerto Rico. Nothing in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Best hotels? Not one. That's sad. And we didn't make the list of the best islands in the world either. Last year it was free. This year it's going to cost $1 million. Last year the festivals and carnivals were run by volunteers. Cost of staff, $0. Now the Department of Tourism is taking over, and the budget for staff is $1.1 million for 12 new jobs. There's a festival division director, 1 assistant director for each island, 4 accountants, administrative staff. Wow. I wonder if they all get administrative leave on the days of festival events, or if they actually have to work those days. One of the great things about fishing is that it's free. You get some worms, put them on a hook, drop them in the ocean, dinner comes home free. Free. Cost of fishing's the cost of the beer. Except not. You have to get a fishing license. I mean, really. Licenses so you can fish for dinner. The government has a way of wiggling its way into everything and making people pay. Our ancestors lived by fishing for free, and they fed platoons of people on the bounty of the ocean. Now the Fish and Wildlife Division wants you to pay. Local folks ages 16 to 62 have to pay $15 for a license. Non-residents pay $30. That's right, make the visitors pay more. And if you want an annual license, that's $125. If you're on a charter boat, you can buy a little book of license tickets and sell them for $20, pocket $5, give $15 to the government. Now, what do the fisher people get for their license fees? More fish? Nope. Better marinas? Nope. Nice docks? Nope. The money goes to the people who collect the fees. So we pay fees so we can pay people to collect the fees. Don't you love government? Thanks for watching. Alex Randall with news and comment. Now back to Leslie.
Thank you for that, Alex. And that's it for our show tonight. We're live on Facebook and YouTube and on VIA Channel 4 and 504 Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. Follow us on social media. Tag us on any stories you want to see on the news, or just send us a message on Messenger. You can also email us at newsdirector@tv2.vi. Thanks again for joining us on News 2. I'm Leslie Camisian. We'll see you next time.